One of the things that raising queer kids has made me realize recently is the reason why I burn out so often is because I'm trying to work full time like a man and also be a homemaker and a parent full time like a woman. Like I'm trying to have the best of both worlds and I simply cannot do it all. There's a reason why back in the day when us millennials were being raised, like our dads went out to work full time and our mums probably stayed home with us full time. And what a privilege that would have been for both people to have that balance. It's got to the point where now we're in a financial climate where typically both parents have to work in order to have some semblance of a lifestyle outside of their work, that being paid work and also work that's done in the home. We also do not place any value on work that is done in the home, and we only really value paid work, which is why traditionally women who stay home get a bad rap because they're not contributing to society, i.e. paying any tax, when actually what we need to realise is that the contribution of selfless mothers to choose to stay home full time and take care of their home and their children if they have them is actually a way bigger contribution to society. To raise emotionally mature humans is a fucking full-time job and then some, and it's unpaid and there's no annual leave. So if you are in the position where one person gets to stay home and make house and raise babies while the other person gets to go out and do paid work, that is great. But unfortunately, I do not think that is the case anymore. And actually, I think women who would traditionally have been the ones to stay at home, that would have just been the expectation. Women also want to use their creative skills, network, be paid for their work, and get out of the house for some time during the week. But unfortunately, now we're in a position where both people are out the house for 40 hours a week typically. And then the people that are suffering, or the aspects of life that are suffering, are home, diet, kids' well-being, because we're not around enough to nurture them to the extent that they really need. So even me with a 7-year-old and 2 4-year-olds, it takes me so much time and energy to meet all of their basic needs, even when we are both available, both off work, both on holiday together. It is a constant cycle of somebody needing their needs met, somebody needing something. Somebody needs the toilet, somebody needs a drink, somebody's upset about something, somebody's hungry, somebody's hurt, somebody's ill. It's a never-ending job. It's a 24/7 job. You don't even sleep while you're doing that job. I mean, the sleep that you do have is great. It's better than no sleep, but it's often broken, disturbed, anxiety dreams about the children and whether they're okay. And I think that we have a pretty good balance. I worked out the maths and that we do, I think, 17/20ths of a working week between us, which is almost double income with 3 kids. And even then, financially, we only have enough disposable to do 2 single week holidays in the year, probably 1 staycation and 1 abroad self-catering. If we chose to cut down our hours even more than that, we would have to cut out of our budget things like holidays, the odd restaurant trip that we do probably once a month, the odd takeaway that we have once a month, gym membership, because outside of that, there isn't really anything else that we are able to pay for. And then that makes me think of, well, I think that I'm in quite a privileged position, and I think of people who are single parents or people who can't work because they have a disability, or people that need to buy things to support their living as a disabled person that they don't get funding for, and that disability tax, or people who are full-time carers for a disabled child and they have to make adaptations to their house, which they don't get any support with. And then you just think that is even harder for those people. And the reason that I mentioned raising queer kids is because obviously I have to bring so much of my masculine energy to the workplace, which is very corporate, a very male dominated environment. And then I have to bring all of my feminine energy. It's almost as like at 5 o'clock, I have to switch that off and go into full-time feminine energy in order to meet my kids' emotional needs, cook dinner, make sure the house is presentable. And there are so many expectations on me to be really, really excellent at my paid job, and also really, really excellent at my unpaid job, which is taking care of my kids and taking care of my home. Because if I don't, then I'm going to be perceived as like a failure, or like my kid's hair hasn't been brushed, or I forgot about a swimming badge, or I forgot that someone was supposed to take in money for a non-school uniform day. Yeah, so I have to feminine energy it up in the morning from 5:50 till 9. Then 9 till 5, I have to masc energy it up. Then 5 till 8, the other end, back to feminine energy. And that constant flip-flopping between like what my bank balance needs and like what my kids and my wife and my home needs is exhausting. I'm even exhausted just talking about it. But I don't think that anybody else is, I mean, I know that other queer parents exist, but I don't see anybody else talking about that. And you might think, oh, well, the hard thing about raising queer kids is like they might get bullied. Like, I know I'm not concerned about that because I pour so much energy into my kids and nurturing them to the point where hopefully they won't get bullied. And if they do, they'll tell me or I'll notice, and then we'll deal with it, aka feminine energy, dealing with school things, right? Traditionally. Obviously, a lot of stereotypes, a lot of nuance. I understand that other genders exist and other types of families exist, etc. But the other parts of raising queer kids are like the occasional homophobia that we might experience, the occasional bigoted comment or look that we might get as a queer family just existing, and the fact that like people ask you very, very intimate questions about the way your children conceived, which they would never ask a straight couple, like, oh, so how many times did you do it to get pregnant? Or like, where did you conceive your child? Like, you just wouldn't, would you? What time and day were they? Which bed? So those are all the things that I've been thinking about in terms of raising queer kids. And I would be so interested to hear from other queer parents about the way that they navigate like working outside of the home and working inside the home, and whose responsibility is whose. Like for me, the things that I don't do, and it's not a weaponized incompetence thing, is like I really struggle to do the bins from a sensory perspective. And I really struggle with cleaning, again, from a sensory perspective. So I have had to outsource the cleaning because it's more financially viable for me to pay someone else for 2 hours to come into my home and clean it than for me to take 2 hours off work. And like my wife gladly does the bins and gladly does like clean and stuff. And it's not because I'm like, oh, well, you do it better than me. It's because I genuinely get so icked out by the sensory experience that I'm just like, I would rather, if you could do that, then I will do all of the food ordering, all of the fucking boring financial spreadsheets, all of the cooking, for example. And that has worked out pretty well for us. But like, it's taken so long for us to fall into a routine just as a couple. And then when kids come along and the person who usually does the bins is like knee deep in breastfeeding twins, you're like, oh fuck, I guess this is my responsibility now. And that's fine, obviously it's fine. But I just don't see other queer couples who are raising queer kids talking about it. And the way I say queer kids is obviously my kids aren't old enough to understand their sexual identity or gender identity yet, but by proxy, being raised by queer people, they are queer. Their lifestyle is queer to other people. So that's just to clarify that. But it's interesting, and I'd love to hear how other people navigate daily life as a queer family. Anyway, that's the end of my little rant about queerness in capitalism and all things to do with working. As always, take care, live slowly. Love you, bye.